Um, Guys, welcome to everyone who has tuned in for our first iteration, our first episode of Did You See This with me, Charlie, and Alex, as we react to the best and worst that social media has to offer, especially in the fields of business, fundraising, finance, and startups. So the format of this is going to be pretty simple. Myself and Alex often reading things, listening to things that we hear and we think that's pretty interesting. And so we thought, wouldn't it be interesting for a handful of people around the world who want to actually listen into some of our thoughts and hear the discussions that me and Alex are having regularly anyway around these topics? And we'd love to hear your views, your thoughts, your comments, interesting things you might have seen that we've not that you can send to us after. Feel free to DM us or email us any content that you think is pretty cool, and we will promise to review it and potentially bring it up in a future episode as well and get into the discussion. So hopefully you'll enjoy it too, and you'll tune in for a future episode after seeing this one. But in the meantime, why don't we get into it? So Alex, are you going to share with us a little bit about what you've seen recently that has piqued your interest?
Oh, I don't know. It's been so difficult to pick one. I have so many different. I think there's so many themes and things being discussed out there. And I spend every Saturday and Sunday almost listening to, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours of podcast, and my girlfriend, she's getting very annoyed by it. But I did find a clip that I thought could be really, really interesting to see. So I'll actually share my screen here because it's from a YouTube podcast that I'm listening to a lot, the 20 VC, and Charlie, that so this is about fundraising. And over the last 2 months, I've been in dialogue and chatted to a lot of VCs out there, and I've been also chatting to a lot of founders. And there's just this recurring theme now that I bring up my tab here, about especially like fundraising for pre-AI startups. What should you do, and what are investors thinking about this segment of companies? And when I listened to the 20 VC podcast, I think it was 1 or 2 weeks ago, it was the first time I heard a VC publicly say the unspoken thing out loud. And since then, maybe let's just play the clip and then get into it.
That Owen and the team have laid out the golden path for pre-AI SaaS companies and what they need to do in terms of burning the boats to getting to a great outcome. There's a partner here at Benchmark that says any liquidity for pre-AI SaaS companies is top decile performance.
I don't know, did the sound go through here?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
I heard it, so hopefully everyone else heard it.
Okay, cool. No, but it was really the last part that he said here that caught my attention. It's only the top percentile of pre-AI SaaS companies that should get any liquidity, and that was from like one of the partners of Benchmark, which is one of the top firms in the US. What like when you hear this clip, what's your immediate thoughts?
I guess first thing is like clarification. What do you think? Do you think so? This is companies that were created before the AI era, and I guess it's companies who, do you think it's an unspoken subtext to that it's like companies who haven't yet adapted or haven't sort of moved in the direction of AI, or do you think it's any company that was created before the recent era?
Well, I'm just thinking back to conversations I had maybe just at least six, maybe one year ago, and I asked a lot of funds back then, like how much have you actually allocated of your fund, like how many of your investments are going just only to AI, and back then a lot of them said, no, we're still also investing in not AI, pre-AI startups, but I've just increasingly felt that that's really not the case anymore. And maybe Benchmark is just one of the top firms, and they can pick and choose a bit more than maybe the majority of VCs. But I've never publicly heard anybody saying we are. That's basically what he's saying. We are only investing in AI startups, and we are only like, if it's not an AI startup, they need to be top percentile.
I kind of wonder if, and I don't, did he say decile or percentile? Either way,
Sorry, no, no,
it
yeah,
might be
yeah,
top
true, good,
10%,
good.
but still,
Yeah,
either
top
way,
10%.
like it's you're basically saying 90% of the market is out, like irrespective, and the thing that I think is quite interesting there is fundamentally VCs are there to make money, right? And there's lots of different ways to make money. There's loads of different fund structures that can still be profitable effectively for investors, right? At the end of the day, a lot of these funds are pretty happy with achieving on a fund basis like a 3x plus return over the course of like 10 years, right? There are loads of ways to do that. You can have loads of companies, every company that just does 3x over that period with no failures, or you can have 9 companies that fail, and you can have one company that does 100, 1,000x, whatever it might be, and that kind of pays the whole return for the fund. But in the land of AI, we've just sort of seen a whole new benchmark in what that could look like, and I wonder also if that's like changing fund dynamics now. So people are expecting a different volume of winners effectively to be there versus their failures. Like, are people actually going to struggle more to find the winners, and therefore the winners need to have even greater performance? Because we used to talk about the 5 years to $1 billion, right? It was like triple, double. And basically that gets you from like 1 to 100 million in revenue, and at 10x valuation, effectively that gets you to $1 billion as a company, and that should be close to like a fund returner for many funds. Now, maybe nowadays like $1 billion isn't a fund returner with the structure of many funds, because actually unless you're getting to 10 billion, 100 billion, a trillion, then that's the only way these funds can make the kind of return that they're looking to get, because it is ridiculous. Like, we've seen people bounding around at the moment, haven't we, who've said like, if you're not growing basically a 10x year on year in the first like couple of years,
Yes.
then you're not a fit for us. And 5 years ago, that was like a mad concept. Like, a 10x year on year, that was like, companies didn't do that. Like, if you grew 3x year on year, that was crazy good performance, right? And I think we've maybe lost sight a little bit of the fact that that's like growing a business 3x, like every single year is a wild thing to be able to do. And for many funds and for many investors, that should still produce a great return. But like, are those fund dynamics changing because of what people are seeing, and therefore the amount of bets people are taking, and maybe the failure rate of companies or what they're expecting to happen?
Yeah, and I think you're hitting it on the nail. Like what it made me think was that what has really happened is like all the AI startups have shown a completely new kind of growth trajectory, and that has raised the benchmark. But like, what are the ramifications and impact of this? What like I'm probably starting to get at is that you have a lot of great companies out there that was previously what you would consider VC backable and VC fundable, that might right now be caught in this like in between scenario where they were already on the VC track, but now like just out of the blue, the benchmark changed, and now they are not really VC fundable. So what do they do? And there's been a lot of chatter and discussions over the last couple of years that like profitability. You need to be much leaner. You need to be able to like the insane burn levels that we had back in 21 and 20 and 22. Those days are probably over.
Yeah, it's pretty mad. I think that would be my interest in actually just seeing like, what are people pitching now? Like, I'd like to speak to some more VCs and say like, what are they pitching their LPs? Because these cases, like getting into the future Anthropics, getting to and there's an argument also,
yes,
whether the landscape's already been set or not. Like, so other companies that are growing super fast today, basically now the ones who are fighting for contention, right? The OpenAIs, the Anthropics, the Googles, whoever it might be, like the Metas, are they the companies who are now going to define the next 10 years, 20 years of value in the kind of AI economy? Or actually have we only seen the first 1, 5, 10% of those companies coming into existence? Are there going to be a lot more of these like billion, trillion dollar cases sort of coming through? And so I'd be super interested to speak to some more VCs and see what they're pitching their LPs about actually what does the landscape look like going forward. Cool. Should we switch tack and like focus on something else?
Like, did you also find something for today?
Yeah, I found something pretty interesting. So
okay, cool.
Let me so maybe here, let me see if I can bring it up for you. So
what's the topic of this one?
All right. The topic on this one is essentially whether AI is actually leading to job losses or not. Right?
Oh,
so
yeah, okay. Another huge theme these days.
It's a huge theme, and if you look in at what most people are saying in the market, most people are pretty. See, there seems to be a consensus around job losses are an inevitable result of AI and what's happening in the market, right? So a lot of people banding around there's going to be like 300 million plus job losses globally, which is completely out of the realms of anything that we've seen before in like industrial revolution or anything like that. Then again, you can argue like, does AI actually become a multiplier force for good, right? So what we saw, for example, with the Industrial Revolution is not just loads of job losses. We saw job losses in certain areas, but then a huge creation of other jobs that no one ever thought could possibly exist. And so, is AI going to do that, or is it gonna reduce that? And like, look, we've seen that. I know in a lot of companies that we work with and service, which is like actually there are roles that now maybe don't make sense for people. But what this study is showing, so Michael Jackson posted about this, and I looked at the underlying paper as well, and basically the results of the paper essentially said that the companies that adopted AI most aggressively and most successfully ended up having job increases, like job count increases rather than decreases, right? So they ended up net like hiring people rather than net firing people, and hiring people to quite a significant degree. So the question is, and I didn't go into the nuts and bolts of it, and so next time I'm probably gonna read it in a bit more detail. But like the question for me is, as well, number one, does AI, if you adopt it really heavily, actually mean that you become more productive and therefore you want to hire more people because you're getting more out of those people? Does it mean that you are growing and fundamentally like AI can't do everything? And so like if you're growing, if you're adopting AI really rapidly, like just naturally you're going to have more creation of jobs. And does that take place over the whole economy? So what we also saw was that for companies who adopted AI somewhat in this study, like actually there was no meaningful impact in terms of jobs on AI. And for the people who didn't adopt very well, I think potentially there was some job losses. But like how does that look when we look at it as economy, right? So like fine, you might have, of course, like a company that's like heavily adopting AI or isn't even at the center of the AI sort of industry. They're obviously going to be growing. They're probably not going to be like 1-2 person companies. Like they're obviously going to be hiring. So it makes sense that like they are growing in that sense. But like, is that going to happen across the market, or is that going to be limited to just the people at the top of the market, and we're still going to see massive job losses? I don't know. Do you have a position on this?
Oh, it's I've been thinking a lot while you showed this graph, because I'd really like to understand what is behind that kind of that yellow bar. What group of companies are we measuring here? Because one initial thesis could be that it's all the hyperscalers being in there, or a lot of AI startups, scale-ups, hyperscalers that are of course high on the AI adoption curve, and they are growing so fast that of course they are adding headcount. Or is this like, are we looking at a much wider group of companies, much more like the traditional economy? And then how did they measure the, like, what is high AI adoption? I actually think this one could be both like very insightful, but it could also be semi clickbait-ish while I'm kind of thinking about it, because it could just measure, all the hyperscalers to paint that picture. But if it is a true reflection of like the much broader economy, then I think it's of course super interesting, because the whole job loss discussion, it's I don't most very insightful people I follow, most of them I feel like are actually intelligent enough so that they don't really dare to make a statement on like they think that we'll see a lot of job loss or not. And I'm in the same camp, like I really don't know.
The other question is like, are we going to see some sort of corrective event, right? So that's the big question mark at the moment, which is everyone believes that the AI industry is propped up artificially at the moment by VC dollars. So you've got the biggest companies who are, well, I mean, even earlier on, you've got like a load of money flowing into energy creation, into data centers, etc. Then you've got AI, like potentially VC money flowing into the AI sort of model companies, the Anthropics, the OpenAIs, etc. And then you've got VC money flowing into the companies that are building on top of that infrastructure as well. And so everyone's being almost subsidized at the moment in that spectrum. At some point, if a big enough return or big enough revenues don't come that makes those numbers meet in that industry, like the VC money will stop flowing. Everything will get a lot more expensive because our subsidized tokens won't be there anymore. And then people at the end will be saying, well, right, the task that AI used to do for me that took 10 tokens now takes 1,000 tokens, whatever it might be. It's going to be like 10x, 15x, 20x the cost of what it was before. And at that point, do we then revert to what we were doing before, right? Like, will the energy infrastructure, will the data centers and the volume of compute that we need, will that keep up with what the market needs? Because otherwise, like, we might then correct, like there might be a lot of job losses, and then suddenly we're going to need to hire people in the future. The other thing that was interesting that people have been talking about is people are like, okay, well, we're not hiring junior talent, but in 4 or 5 years time, when some of that junior talent turns into senior talent, companies going to have a big shortage of that senior talent. So like, at that point, are people going to suddenly realize, what have we done here?
We forgot to train senior talent.
Well, it's almost that, right?
We forgot to take them in when they were junior.
It is, and it's like, what do we do? We've got like a worldwide shortage of senior talent, and maybe then suddenly this talent, this like mid-level or senior talent, maybe there'll be a huge demand for those people in the market. Maybe prices and values of those people will go up significantly, potentially for a number of years, until the next 5-year cycle where we can get more junior talent through, because people suddenly realize, we need to invest in junior talent to bring them through the cycle to then to then actually have the senior talent that we can nurture later on. Right? It's kind of interesting. It's kind of a bit of like a football analogy as well. It's kind of like clubs who like train talent internally and sort of bring them in rather than operating on the transfer market, which is super expensive. So yeah, that's what I saw. What's the next thing? What else have you seen that's interesting this week?
I saved a couple of things here. Let me see what I have in the bank. Maybe let's take this one. So yeah, it's actually also related to the Harry Stepping 20 VC podcast. But this one, so I actually listened to the podcast, but then what caught my attention was a LinkedIn post he did following that, where he basically he's just quoting himself from the podcast on the file that he had on. But it has also been a let me just see here. I think
Harry and his podcasts come out with some great quotes.
Yeah,
not all of them I agree with, but they come out with some great quotes.
No. Yeah, no, it's I think right now it is probably my favorite podcast. I think he's done a great job, but he was number 2 for some time, and now it's probably the one I turn in on.
So he talks a lot about this, his whole like
9-9-6
7 days a week stuff, right?
Like, I think at least for 1 or 2 months, he has been talking about this on every single podcast. But like, let's just read it out loud here. So he's saying, if you are not working 7 days per week, you are going to lose. Cargi Insurance is the most intense workplace culture in startups. The company works 7 days per week. Founder Nico Laka, I can't really pronounce, I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, lives and sleeps in the office. He built a cafe, blah, blah, yeah. But yeah, he has become it's become kind of the thing he's not the thing, but one thing he's being quite well known for, Harry, for talking about this, and also hated by a lot, because when you go out and say stuff like that, of course some hate follows. What's we have, of course, you and me also been discussing this over the years, in our position, we are setting the scene for company culture. And like, what's your immediate thoughts when you see it? Like, what's your stance on what Harry is talking about here?
I think you can't escape the inevitable truth that the volume of work that you put in is at least in some way correlated to the volume of output that you get out. Not everyone needs the same end result and the same output. So there's someone who's building a lifestyle business, may have to work like 24/7. I mean, so I think most business owners, most founders have to work extremely hard. And to be honest, that lives in here, not necessarily always in what you do, keyboard strokes, etc. Like you're always thinking, realistically, if you own a business, you run a business, the brain never rests. From the moment you wake up in the morning, probably the dreams you have at night, and then from the moment you go to sleep, in the shower, on the toilet, whatever you're doing, like you're thinking about the business, you're thinking about, how do I get better? How do I win customers? How do I hire the right people? How do I make sure that none of the terrible things that are going to happen to my business happen? So I think most people are switched on 24/7, in the brain, and that's
100%.
It's a struggle as well, right? Like you need to find a way to get that out. But the the question is, how does that translate to like physical actions? And I still think there is a correlation. Like the more stuff you're doing generally, as long as you're like not doing stuff that's completely useless, the bigger the outcome, or the better it's going to be. And there's no way you can build an Anthropic, and there's no way that you can be Elon Musk in terms of like building the 7 companies that are going to be like, billion-dollar companies, whatever, without putting in a huge volume and having basically an unhealthy obsession with what you're doing. But the question is like, how are you doing it? What do you need to get out of your team to do it? How do you need to talk about it and communicate it? And again, it also I think leads into like company culture. We spoke about I can't remember who it was now, but someone who a few months back we watched a podcast and the guy was saying like we when we hire people, this is what we basically put out on our sort of job profile or like sort of criteria. And it was basically like we have a hardcore culture. Like if you don't want a hardcore culture, don't come and work here. And like this probably would alienate, essentially how it was written would alienate like 95% of people. But the 5% who were interested in that, it's perfectly fit and they'd hire, exactly the right people for the job. And in doing so, they get a group of people who are motivated to work in the right way towards the right outcome, rather than people who are mismatched with like the direction that the founder sets or kind of the company's going in. And again, you can have different companies that win in different ways, but if people aren't aligned with how the company rolls, then there's no way you're going to have a successful outcome. So for me, it's less about exactly, you're going to have to work hard for sure, no matter what success you want, but how that hard work comes through is really dependent on making sure that everyone is aligned towards the culture that's in that company and how you want to work. That's kind of how I see it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I think I very much agree with what you just said, and it's a very nuanced thing. So if we just take it as it stands here, if you're not working 7 days per week, you're going to lose. Like, of course, that statement is wrong. Like, it's not correct. So it's all companies are different and journeys are different. As a founder, as you say, all founders are used to working hard, but if you work 7 days per week, then like you're going to burn out at some point. I think one thought that it prompted in me was the whole kind of concept, like the consideration around that we are living right now in the times of a gold rush, a new industrial revolution, and that is like a very unique point in time where that new companies being built, new categories are being created, and if you want to win those, the harder you work, like right now, the higher the likelihood, the better the chances you give yourself of winning. So I do kind of see why this trend is coming out. Like more and more people are talking about, hey, we're working 6 or 7 days and we're sleeping in the office, because right now it is a more unique time than for a very long period. But it also made me think a couple of other. It gave me a couple of other thoughts, which was that just here in, I don't know how it is in London, but in Scandinavia, I remember, I started my first company 16 years ago, and we started scaleup.finance 5 years ago, and I do think there has been kind of a shift, a cultural shift. I remember just 5 years ago, it was much more like as an employer, it felt like the benchmark, when you competed and like you had other, what was the standard or the benchmark set by basically just the the employers out there. It was like, hey, work-life balance and blah blah blah. And if you talked about this is hardcore culture, you would have stood out, I think, much more than you do today. And what we've seen over the last
Like
couple of years,
alienate yourself, basically, right? People would be
yeah,
talking a lot of bad stuff about you.
I think you would, you would have gotten hate. You couldn't say it back then. Then Elon Musk took over, X, and there was a big, not that it's related completely to him taking over X, but I think there has been a kind of a now a movement against a lot of the cultural, let's just call it maybe some of the what people call wokeness, that, and I think what we're seeing now maybe is a counter movement to that hey, it's okay to say, just like you expressed before, it's okay to say now in this company, this is the culture. We work super hard for whatever reason. We work 7 days per week, and if and of course there's people that are willing to do that and interested. So I also just agree with you. And if that's the company you want to build and that's the culture you want to have, then just be open about it. And maybe 5 years ago you had the same kind of founders out there or people that also work 7 days per week, but maybe didn't feel like they could really say it out loud.
100%. And like everyone has different situations. People want to build family lives, and people want to spend time with their with friends and family and all sorts. And so the the that's only going to suit a certain type of company setup. Oh, I've gone a bit blurry here. It's only going to suit a certain type of company setup. But like, you got to be in the right framework that suits what you're trying to build, right? And I think that's that's the result of it.
Yeah, but I would actually say the people that want to and are willing to work 7 days per week, it must be a special period in their life, because you can work super duper hard. You can work fucking hard.
Yeah.
But working 7 days per week, then you do not have friends and you do not have family. So for example, like, you would not be able to have a partner, and you would not be able to have kids if you do that. Or at least, like, I would say you are a very, very bad parent if you chose to work 7 days per week.
Which is also like fine, and that's how you want to lead your life, and that's one route to success as well, potentially, in terms of business success. But like, there are plenty of people who've also built very valuable, meaningful businesses who have also been able to have other things in their life. It doesn't have to just be the business. There are probably a few businesses that almost require like dedication beyond anything else to get there. But I think the vast majority of outcomes that most average people talk about in terms of the desired outcomes, like where they want to be or what they would like to achieve or the kind of type of company they want to build, like, it is feasible to do that while having some other things in your life. Like, it doesn't have to just be that with nothing else, no exercise, no children, no nothing. It's like from morning till night, it's working on it, even if it always lives up there. Yeah. Cool. I think we've got. Think that wraps us up for this this session.
Already?
I don't know. We've been at it for 26 minutes now, and I feel like maybe we save it for the next one.
And we started a few minutes early. No, I think exactly. Let's just stop here. We don't want to take up too much time. But it was fun.
Well, I hope people enjoyed it. Time flies when you're chatting about things that you love, and hopefully for people viewing and listening in, time flew as well for listening to us talk about those things. And we will be back with more episodes of Did You See This? We're going to be talking about even more interesting stuff that we've seen on LinkedIn, on social in general. We'll be diving into those things. If you find anything, as again, that you thought was interesting, please send it over to Alex or I. We'll take a look at it and we'll talk about it in our future episodes. But apart from that, hope you guys have a great week and keep on building.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.
Have a great week. Bye.